Hey, everybody. Another version of Email Never Sleeps. Today's topic is called Lessons Learned, What I Wish I Knew About Before Migrating ESPs. And we might touch a little bit on the topic of B2B churn. I'm very happy to introduce my colleague and a definite person in this industry who really has a lot to say about this. And her name is Anna Levitine. She's in Tel Aviv. So this is an amazing podcast. So Anna, why don't you give us a little bit about your background, who you are, and then maybe touch a little bit on the topics that we chose for today.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Andrew. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate this opportunity to share my knowledge. And Anna Levitine from Powtoon. I lead here email and marketing operations.
Mm-hmm.
And my background is actually in cultural anthropology. And
Wow.
I'm glad you asked how it's connected.
Yeah, tell me how that kind of came about.
So for many years, I was exploring behavior, but not just in a data way without any technology, with a pen and paper. And
Yeah,
now when I have all the tools and
yeah,
some of them I migrated to, we were going to
yeah.
speak about that. So it just gives me an opportunity to actually focus on user behavior.
That's awesome. And how long have you been in the email industry, digital industry in itself?
So to the digital industry, I came from the very classic media, outdoor banners, TV commercials,
Yeah,
industry where you basically can measure nothing.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm in digital marketing for the last 6 years.
Wow, awesome. So when we corresponded about maybe setting this up, one of the things that you wanted to talk about was ESP migration, and I'm curious why you chose that. What was the impetus for you wanting to jump on here and talk about ESP migration?
So I had this experience twice in my life, in the current company and the previous one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's quite a challenging as any migration,
Yep.
especially the bigger database you have, the longer you keep your users, the how many years your product exists. So I just wanted to share my preparation because as it seems very complex, but there is a checklist that you just can go one by one and make
Mm-hmm.
sure you're ready for migration.
Right. And I too have been through several migrations. I've answered several RSPs. I've been client side where we ran through migration. I've been agency side where we helped with migrations. I've been at iPost now, which is an ESP, and we've done migration. So I've seen the trifecta of it all. So tell me, these two migrations that you said you've been through. Um, what sort of checklists? What do you mean by that? Because I've got a pretty strong opinion about migrations in and itself. Some may be unpopular, some may be very popular. But I'm curious. You said there's this checklist that you have.
Right, right. So I have to say that I'm a marketing person, right? I'm not a technical person.
Right.
So for me, it's the checklist. It's just to not just, but to make sure that I provide all the dev team with necessary information, that I'm in a very contact with a product team, that we have a clear user journey, that we track all the events, all the feature adoption, and
Mhm.
in the end that we have all our marketing materials, email copy and design ready. And of
Mhm.
course this checklist has around 100 different
Right.
lines.
Right. I view migrations a couple different ways. There's what I call a full service migration, meaning the new vendor sort of takes over and does everything and sort of works both from technical, both from marketing. And then there's this sort of self-serve migration, right? Where you basically or the organization works with the vendor and you do most of the work, and both of them require a lot of there's a lot of differences between them. Neither one is right or wrong. It's just that is a lot of thought that has to go into this, right? And you said you've been through two, and you have this checklist, and you work from the marketing, and you go into the dev teams. Curious, when you went through these two migrations, and no matter what, you guys had like a cycle and said, we're going to get this migration done in X number of times. Did it ever happen on time? Was it always on time? Was there delays? Like what's that red flag that kind of you said happens right when you get into this migration cycle?
Such a great comment. I mean, it's never enough time. Like you can say you want to complete the migration in 6 months, 9 months, 60
Mm-hmm.
months, whatever, and it's never enough time to
Yeah.
prepare because when you share this project with several departments, it's very
Mm-hmm.
important to first of all prioritize to show like business goals,
Mm-hmm.
so to give a clear understanding of what might go wrong.
Right. And the way I look at it, right, is if someone says it's gonna, I've done migrations, so let me preface this. I've done migrations that have taken 30 days. I've also seen and done migrations that have taken a year. And oftentimes, no offense to all the vendors out there, right? Sometimes we'd say we can get that migration done in 30 days or in 60 days. And that's not true, right? And that's part of the ESP evaluation process to say, what's your average migration time based off of what you know? But you made an interesting, when we exchanged notes and stuff, you said, how should the migration process be prioritized for C-level people? Right? Because C-level people, right, have this sort of thing in mind. Well, gosh, it's only email. How hard can it be, right? How do you prioritize? How do you give credence to the, hey, this is might be a 3 or 6 month process to C-level? I'm curious as to how you've done that before in the past.
Right, great question. So I think first of all, whenever you show the results of email, the ROI, their monthly revenue, how it helps to achieve business goals.
Yeah,
So the credibility increases, and also the C-level management understand the
yeah,
importance of this specific tool.
yeah,
So whenever like I talk with my management, I divided it sort of for like 5 different personas. I mean,
yeah,
when I talk to SEO of the company,
mm-hmm.
they usually care about all like the customer satisfaction and
Right,
internal team
sure,
satisfaction. And what helped me to get an approval from them is
mm-hmm.
we actually had an agency that helped us migrate, and
Okay,
we fantastic implementation team on the ESP side. So we
mm-hmm.
had a call with all of them. So the CEO actually like understood that there are some people that really gonna hold my hand and
Mm-hmm.
help me in this process, and no one will let us down, you know.
And there's no there. I would say of all the migrations that I've been a part of, there's no silver bullet. There's no secret formula. There's no, hey, it's the same migration over and over and over again. There's different nuances to each one of these things, right? It's dependent upon the complexity of the infrastructure at the client, the complexity of the data. Where is it coming from? How many emails do they have that are automated, or IP infrastructure, or size of file, or there's so many different nuances. I would say that I've dealt with plenty of vendors in my career. If some vendor came to me and said, we've done a million of these things, they're pretty easy. We're able to do that. I know that there's some untruth to that, right? Because there is no one migration that is the same migration. And so you have to kind of take that into consideration. And one of the points that you made was, hey, there's probably some red flags when we're doing this sort of evaluation of, a group of ESPs or a group of different things. There's probably like some flag, and I'm sure like you get an attention and be like, that's something. So what are some red flags people should be aware of, right? As when they're looking to perhaps make a move from one vendor to another?
Yeah. So, like, I like to say that you don't need to migrate. Like, not every company needs to migrate. It's
Mhm.
fine to stay with solution you have now.
Sure.
Nothing is bad in that. I
Yeah.
just sometimes, I talk to my colleagues and everyone is starting to migrate from one tool to another. And I'm not talking only about ESP, also different other solutions.
Yeah.
And I started to feel anxious because, wow, I also need to do that. So,
Yeah.
first of all, it's fine to stay with the solution you have now.
Hmm.
Uh, for me, one of the red flags is, first of all, like the technical challenges. If the solution no longer allows to solve something.
Hmm.
Um, for example, in our case, Powtoon started as a B2C, it's
Hmm.
animation platform, and at some point of our journey, that company exists already 12 years,
Right.
so we decided to add B2B business model. So
Okay.
with ESP solution we previously had, it was quite challenging.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, it was, I mean, creating different domains, IPs, so it requires also like the financial agreements, so
Hmm.
and the audience separation. So first of all, like the technical challenges.
Right.
The second one is the business goals. If you have clear business goals, expanding different markets, for example,
Hmm.
or focusing on a different channels, and your current solution is not supporting it, it's
Yep.
also like there is a
I, I have a story, and this was probably around 10 years ago, maybe. I'm not really sure. I'm not really good on time these days. I was brought in as a consultant to sort of be not the naysayer, but the I would call it the bullshit leader, right? Like I was hired during a process where they were wanting to migrate off of their current ESP to the new ESP. And so it was this whole room of people, and I was sort of sitting in the back, sort of just taking notes. And one of the red flags that I always sort of my sort of red flag that goes up is I ask the question around, can the salesperson demo, not a technical demo, but can the salesperson actually work within the tool? And that way, and I call myself a proverbial learner, right? If that salesperson can actually work inside the system and do a mini demo, then somebody like me or a marketing person or somebody that it doesn't require some huge degree PhD certificate person to actually run the system. And so I sat in the back of the room and I raised my hand and I said, whatever, Johnny, you're the salesperson, right? And they're like, yeah, absolutely, right. I can't wait. We're going to do all this. And here's some fancy iPads or whatever. And I said, well, why don't you run the first part of the demo? And I saw his face drop because he didn't know the tool. Now, somebody would say that's very controversial, Andrew. The salesperson is the salesperson. They're the ones who's creating the relationship. But I say, time out. People need to know their product, right? And so from before I even jump into the migration, before I even jump into the tool, I need to make sure that somebody knows how to do the tool and not the team of technical people that they brought in to present the actual thing. That's red flag number one. Red flag number two is talking about the actual migration. Who's the team? I'd like to talk to that team. If I'm going through a full service migration, do I have the A team, the B team, the C team, or the D team? Right? Kind of come in to run my migration, and how many migrations have they done? And sort of let's use this as an interview process. We're going to be quote unquote married for at least a year based off of the contract, maybe two, maybe three, maybe five, and we're investing X number of dollars into your platform. I want to know the people behind it. Who is going to work with me more so than anything else? Those are the two flags that could potentially go up. If they're like, oh, well, we've got a whole team of people sitting back in X office to do it, I'd be like, great. But before we make our decision, I want to meet them. And I always advise people to do that. Who are these people? All right. So before we switch topics, and I want to switch to the B2B churn rate because I want to get some time because I think it's very, very important. And if we don't feel like we've got enough, we can always bring you back, Anna. So
never migration.
let's talk about B2B churn for a moment, right? Because I think that that's really an interesting topic, right? Um, when we start talking about churn in general, people have a hard time understanding churn and what that actually means. So, how do you define B2B churn as it relates to email marketing? Tell me what you think about that.
So churn in generally, it's subscribers that decided not longer use your product. In
Okay.
majority of the cases, subscribers, paid users that cancel their subscription.
Okay.
And the way how the rate is counted, if you have a number like of your total users and users that you get every month and users that canceled their subscription, this is how you simply count the churn rate.
Mm-hmm. I say there's two different types of churn, right? There's the actual people that don't use your product anymore. And then there's the silent churners, right? People that just don't interact for whatever reason. Maybe they're just disinterested. Maybe they forgot to unsubscribe. Maybe they forgot that they just don't want to get your email. Maybe they've created a rule. There's the real churners and then there's the silent churners. And the silent churners are harder to identify because they're still on your list. You're still sending them emails. You may think that they're using your product, but maybe you're not using data the correct way to say, Anna's a user, Andrew's not, but I'm still getting emails, right? So there has to be this uniqueness, and that goes back to integrity of data and the ability for to know your audience. Whether you're sending to 1 million people or 100,000 people in B2B, I think that's really, really important. What are some strategies that you've done to overcome churn? And then we'll probably have to wrap it up. But maybe this is a whole separate podcast between you and me, right? Churn in general. But what are some strategies that you have felt in your career have been effective in churn?
So I think churn in general, it's all about the platform adoption. And the next question, okay, how I as a platform can make sure that user actually using my platform. And of course, the first thing I will mention is onboarding and in-app guidance.
Yeah.
And when I'm saying onboarding, I mean constant onboarding, not just throwing all features in the first 7 days or 2 weeks to the user
Yep.
and that's it, take it
Yeah.
and forget
Yeah.
about it. No, it's
Yeah.
constant onboarding and actually understanding what is missing for user. And I want to give an example from
Yeah.
Powtoon. So our platform helps users to create presentations, video trainings. So oftentimes users struggle with creating their first corporate templates. And I'm talking about
Mhm.
the B2B users now. So
Right.
how we help them is we provide services that help them to build like initial templates to upload their logos, upload their fonts, their guidelines, colors, whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a profitable, right? It's not a
Right.
service that can generate us income, but
Yeah.
by doing that, we know that it become much easier for user to use our platform.
Mm-hmm. You make a very interesting point, and I actually agree with you that especially in B2B, it is a constant onboarding, especially in software in general, right? Because if you think about it, right, just because you send a welcome email or a welcome series and you get in the first 7 days or even 7 weeks, there's always learnings that could happen. And that people overlook as well. It's just ongoing. Well, no, it's an ongoing onboarding journey for that individual to learn more and more and more and more and more, right? I learn about PowerPoint. I learn more about Excel. I learn more and more just by actually doing it. But it's always a good thing that if I'm inside software, like you mentioned, right? There's this notion of it has to be a constant learning thing. And so that helps avoid churn. So everybody, don't think of onboarding or churn as something that I'm drawing a line in the sand and now I have to go to a win back program, right? This is an ongoing journey and you have to treat it as such for people to learn and learn and learn and learn. And that's especially important in B2B, whether they are a customer or not. right? Because if they're not a customer, they're seeing that you're constantly trying to help them. And then hopefully sort of, help them sort of cross over and become a customer. All right. So we're kind of at the end of time. And I would love to give you, Anna, the ability to say, what are some key points that you want to get across to our audience, either as it relates to migration or as it relates to churn? Like, the floor is yours. What would you like to say to it to our audience?
I think the important to mention, and it's relevant for both topics, ESP and churn rate, it's aligned with the business goals. And as an internal like marketing ops department or email team, to build a case to support business goals. In this
Mm-hmm.
way, first of all, you can reach your personal, like not your team goals, like for
Mm-hmm.
example, to migrate, to cancel some software. And at the same time, you will more likely to receive a green light from the management. And on the other hand, if
Yeah.
the priority is shifting, and it's actually very relevant for churn, and this is one of the reasons why B2B companies churning.
Yeah.
Business priority change, for example, they're not longer working with their in other like languages market. So, they don't need multilingual platforms.
Right.
So stay aligned with the business goals.
Good. That's a great point. Remember, business goals shift, and your vendor has to shift. Internally, it has to shift. Everybody internally at your organization should understand when goals shift digitally, right? And make sure that everybody is aligned on up to the C-level people. And then as you meet with your vendor, let's say you've migrated to a new ESP, make sure you treat them as that partner, right? And tell them what your changes in business goals are, because that allows your vendor to give maybe insight as to how you can use the platform or the software differently as your goals change. Maybe they can offer suggestions that or optimization ideas to help you utilize the platform even more. And I will say this, my experience has been that most customers use about 25, at the most 40% of the platform's ability. And the people on the other end should help you when your goals change, and the ability for them to say, maybe you should use this feature, maybe you should use that feature, or work with them on messaging or creative or a lot of other things. And that goes back to the ESP migration. Are you hiring a partner or are you hiring a vendor? Those are the two. Those are the two things you have to decide for yourself. If you just want a vendor, go for the cheapest price that will do anything. If you want to partner, that's a whole different story. And that starts with the migration. That starts with helping you in a variety of different ways. And there's lots of vendors out there that do it. And any final thoughts before I thank our audience? Anything else that you'd like to say?
You said it very nicely. Choose a partner, not a supplier. And
Right.
the partner, like in relationship, the partner is sharing with you their
Yeah.
thoughts, their concerns, their plans.
Yeah.
So whenever you go for another solution, make sure they're sharing roadmap,
Sure.
and you have to influence this roadmap.
Absolutely. And it's the team behind the platform too, right? It's the team that understands your business. So with that, Anna, I really wanted to thank you so much. I know you reached out to me. I'm so glad that we were able to record this. I wanted to thank you for sharing your knowledge with the audience today. Folks, like I said always, at the end of this video, you can get all the details about where to reach Anna on LinkedIn, which is where her and I conversed a little bit, and learn more about the company she works for, learn a little bit more about her. So don't be shy, reach out to her. I wanted to thank everybody for your attention today, your ongoing commitment and support to Email Never Sleeps. And again, to my guest, Anna Levitine, for taking her time to share her knowledge with us. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great day. Keep emailing the way that you're emailing, but switch it up just a bit.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.